Hello, good afternoon to all of you. I hope all of you are doing well. So, in today's class, we're going to begin with the fourth phase of requirement analysis, that's called as requirement analysis process. Now, we have learned in the previous class the various steps involved in requirement analysis. The steps are fixing up system boundary. Second one is to identify the customer. The third one is to elect requirement. Now the fourth phase that we have is called requirement analysis process. So once all the stakeholders requirements are gathered, okay, what we need to do is we need to perform a detailed structural analysis of these requirements, right? So why do we need to have a structural analysis being done? It's just to ensure that we understand and identify all potential aspects and the problems that are related to the aspects pertaining to the requirements. Okay, so it's very much important. So we need to understand and identify all potential aspects and problems that may be associated with the aspects that needs regarding the systems that regarding the requirements that are to be implemented. Right now, there are various types of uh, software requirement analysis techniques, and these are called as requirement animation, okay, requirement reasoning, knowledge based critiquing, consistency checking, analogies, and case based reasoning, right? So these are the various requirement analysis techniques that are used. Requirement animations can be used, requirement reasoning can be used, knowledge based critiquing can be used, consistency checking can be used, analogies can be used, and case based reasoning can be used. Now these are all tools that are capable of facilitating understanding of the requirements as well as facilitating us in order to identify the potential problems that may be associated with the requirements that are being understood. So this is the importance of the requirement analysis process. So again, I'll repeat it. So once all the stakeholders requirements have been gathered and identified, what we need to do is we need to carry out a structured analysis of the set of requirements using system models in order to ensure that we understand the system and we identify all potential problems that are associated with the system. This can be done using requirement animation, requirement reasoning, knowledge-based critiquing, consistency checking, analogies, and case-based reasoning. Now, once a detailed structured analysis of the requirements have been done, what we need to do is we need to execute the requirement specification phase. Now, once the requirements are elected, modeled, and analyzed, what we need to do is we need to document the requirements in a clear and unambiguous manner. Right, so this is very much important. So once the requirements are elected, modeled, and analyzed, it should be documented in a clear and unambiguous manner. A written requirement document is critical so that it is used for varied purpose of the stakeholders, including the clients, user groups, the development, and the test team. As I've already said, this specification document may be used by a wide set of audiences. It may be used by the marketing agent. It may be used by the document writers. It may be used by the client. It may be used by the test engineers. It may be used by the maintenance engineers. It may be used by the project manager. It may be used by the organization. So there are different possible audiences of the specification document that is being created. So it plays a very critical role. Well documented requirement specification document plays a very critical role in promoting the understanding of the system amongst wide set of audiences. So software requirement specification involves scoping the requirement so that it meets up to the customer's vision. So this is very much important. Software requirement specification document should inculcate in it all possible requirements that the customer wants from the system to be developed. Okay, so this is very much important. You see, it should inculcate in it all possible requirements that the customer wants from the system to be developed. So it is the result of collaboration between the end users, who is often not a technical expert, and a technical system analyst who is likely to approach the situation in technical terms. Now, just see here, it may so happen that in situation whenever we're preparing a specification document, the users of the specification document may not be experts. Okay, so some an example, you may be capable of creating a very good technical definition for a requirement, but the technical definition may be rather not understandable to the customer, because customers do not understand the technical term. So it's very much essential that what we need to do is we use natural language in expressing various requirements in the specification document that's created pertaining to the system. It not only enhances readability, but it also enhances understandability. Further, it enhances the acceptability of the document by the audiences. Right, so end users may not be technical in nature, but project managers may be or may be capable of explaining the things in a technical manner. So that has to be a neat balance has to be maintained between the way how the requirements are expressed. So this is what we have learned till now, right? Okay. So software requirement specification is a document that lists out stakeholders' need and communicates these to technical community that will design and build the system. So what this is one of the purpose, very purpose for which the specification document may be created, right? Okay. So the use of the specification document can be made by the developers and the designers in order to build the system. So the challenge of a well-written requirement specification document is to clearly communicate to both the groups or all the stakeholders and all the sub stakeholders that are there within the groups, that what system is all about, right? So this is a very important aspect that software specification document has to focus on. It has to be clear, it has to be concise, it has to be free of anomalies, it has to be free of ambiguities, and it has to be free of contradictions. So that's why I've said in the previous class, whenever you create a specification document has to be created in a manner that it emphasizes on what rather than how. To overcome this, requirement specification may be documented separately as user requirements, okay, right? System requirements. So user requirement written in a clear, precise language with plain text and use cases for the benefit of the customer and the end user. System requirement expressed as a programming or mathematical model addressing the application development team, quality assurance team, and the testing team. So, in order to, in situation where it's difficult to use the same document to convince different set of audiences, what you can do is we can prepare the document separately into user document and system. User requirement document and system requirement document, where a user requirement document tries to emphasize on the functionalities that are supported for by the system for the user, and system requirement document presents the mathematical model or programming model or a technical expression of the system that is to be implemented. Now, requirement specification document serves as a starting point for software, hardware, and database design. This is very much true. But here, just listen to me carefully. In situation, you are building up a kind of system, right? Again, system engineering. Whenever you're focusing on system engineering, then this hardware aspect has to be included. But whenever you're talking about software engineering, we basically focus on software design and database design, right? So requirement specification, because there can be a tightly coupled hardware and software system, and there might be a generic system as well. So requirement specification serves as a starting point for software, hardware, and database design. So these three aspects are included in case of a tightly coupled system, like, okay. But in case of system where it is capable of working with generic hardware, so we have system, software, and database design. So it describes the functional as well as non-functional aspect of the system. So whenever you're trying to create a specification document basically tries to emphasize on three important aspects. The aspects are functional aspect, non-functional aspect, and the limitations or the constraints on the which the system is expected to exhibit behavior. Now, the performance and so the performance of the system and the operation and the user interface constraints that will be governing the system development will also be incorporated into the software requirement specification document. So, you see, these are the essential features of software requirement specification document. Software requirement specification document includes functional requirement, non-functional requirement, and the performance issues or the constraints that are governing the implementation of the realization of the system. Now, current requirement engineering practice reveals that a well-defined, clearly documented requirement specification plays a very critical role, right? This is very true. It is always found that when the specification documents are much more concise, clear, free of anomalies, ambiguities, and contradictions, and incompleteness, right? It plays a very critical role in case of system development or system engineering. Okay. Now, just see, it acts as a base for validating the started requirements and resolving stakeholders' conflict. This is very much true, right? So it acts as a basis for validating the stated requirements and resolving stakeholders' conflict. This is very much true, right? Okay. So eventually, if the customer has a contradicting argument, so what we can do is we can take it as a basis for resolving the conflict, that this has been agreed upon set of requirements before the onset of the development, right? Okay. It may be used for resolving stakeholders conflicts as well, right? It acts as a contract between the development team and the client. So this is very much true. Your software requirement specification document acts as a contract between the client and the development team. It acts as a basis for system design for the developing team. Very true. So requirement specification document very often it's not very often, but it's always used as a basis for system design, because design is nothing but a abstraction of the requirement specification document. So design takes into account the functional aspects and try to create a model out of it in terms of structure and implementation model. So basis for it. So requirement specification document definitely acts as a basis of system design. Now it acts as a benchmark for project managers for planning project development life cycles and goals, right? Definitely, right? So if you have a well documented requirement specification artifact build, so it acts as a benchmark, right, for project managers for planning, so how the various phases are to be executed, right, okay, and how the various goals are to be met. Source for formulating test plans, definitely. So because in the specification document we have specified all the functional requirements, what does it take in and what does it produce, okay, and also used for quality assurance, right? Again, and resource for requirement management and requirement tracing, very true. So it may be very easy for us to track the various requirements that are there, right? And manage those requirements, and basis for evolving requirements for the overall project lifespan. Just see, these are very important points that we are trying to focus on, that tries to represent or that tries to emphasize on the importance of creating a very proper and a well structured requirement specification document and the role it plays. Now, the next phase that you have is called as requirement management. Now, requirement management is a comprehensive process that includes all aspects of software requirement analysis and additionally ensures verification, validation, and traceability of the requirement. Right. So just see, this is what is called as requirement management. So requirement management is a process that attributes to all aspects of software requirement analysis and verification and validation and traceability. Now, effective requirement management practice guarantees that all the system requirements are stated unambiguously, omissions are eradicated, errors are corrected, and then it helps in evolving the software requirement for the later use as well, for the future purposes as well, right? Okay. So requirement management is a phase that is purely dedicated for managing all the aspects that are related to requirements, that are requirement engineering, that are requirement analysis, requirement verification, validation, and traceability, and further enhancement as well. Now, software requirement specification document, as it is called as SRS document. Now, software requirement specification document is a name given to the document that specifies various functional and non-functional requirements. Right? Okay. So, software requirement specification document usually contains the software vendors' understanding about customers' software requirements. So it lists all possible requirement that the customer wants from the software system. But this is the document that is being created by the developing organization. it's not a document that is created by the customer's organization, but it's the document that's created by the developers organization. So that's why it's called as the vendor's understanding of the customer software requirement. Okay. So it's a document that is generated by the developing organization that will try to highlight all possible functional as well as non-functional aspects and the limitations based on their understanding of the software system. Now, this document ensures that the software vendors and the customers are in agreement as to the features required in the software system that's being built. So it acts as an agreement between or a contract between the developer as well as the customer, right, to begin with the development process, right? Or the acceptance of the software system, acceptance of the requirement set, so that the steps, the further steps can be initiated. Now, SRS is created after the initial requirement elicitation process phase in which software vendor interact with the customer to understand the software needs. Now, here, Jesse, this particular statement has to be further completed. Requirement specification, SRS, software requirement specification document is created. Once the requirement elicitation is done, once the requirement has been analyzed and all the problems that are associated with the requirements are resolved. So then what we do is we try and tend to create the requirement specification document, right? So software requirement specification document is created after the execution of the elicitation phase and the analysis phase. Now, usually SRS document is prepared by business analysts who have some technical background, definitely. So what we need people who are expert in identifying the set of requirements and who are expert in interacting with the customer and dealing with the customer, and who have sufficient psychological skills to understand what the customer actually wants, right? Okay, and then the set of requirements are to be analyzed and then further specified. So what we require is we definitely require skilled labor force in order to execute or in order to prepare SRS document. Now, SRS is written in a precise, clean, and a plain language so that it can be reviewed by business analysts or customers representative with minimal technical expertise. Now, this is very true. This is the point that we have been trying to focus on. So, whenever we're creating SRS document, we always need to ensure that the SRS document is understandable to a wide set of audiences. So in the previous class, we have learned about the various audiences of software requirement specification document. So it is very much essential that the software requirement specification document that you create is understandable to different audiences, right? So with minimum, even for the audiences with minimum expertise. Now, however, it also contains analytical models like use case diagram, entity relationship diagram, and data dictionary, which can be used for detailed design and development of the software system. This is very much true, right? Again, so as we discussed, the various contents of the SRS document may be the various models of the software system, which can be further used for creating design and development of the actual system. So, what is the need for an SRS document, right? Okay. So, you see there are various ways in which software requirement specification document can be put to use, right? Now, software requirement specification document is the first deliverable that is created. That means something that is delivered to the software to the clients. So, this is the first deliverable that is created from software lifecycle model. Now, the benefits of good SRS is that it acts as a contract between the customer and the software vendor. A good SRS document specifies all the features required in the final system, including technical requirement and the interface requirement. Right? So it acts as a contract between the developer and the customer, and it tries to highlight all the functional requirements that a final system should have, including the technical requirements and the interface requirement. Now, SRS document is used by the customer to determine whether the software vendor has provided all the features in the delivered software system. Now, this is one of the use that we have said of SRS document is to validate the system that is being developed. So, once the system is being developed, SRS document can be used as a basis for validation, the correctness of implementation of the customer's requirements. So SRS document can be used by the customer in order to determine whether the software vendor has provided all the features that are features that are that are agreed upon in the system that is being built. Now, to the software vendor, it provides a solid foundation to fix the scope of the software system. This is what we learned in the previous class. So, using SRS document, the vendors will be very clear about what is to be implemented, right? Okay, what are the considerations on under which it has to be implemented, okay, right, and what are the key issues, non-functional issues that are to be focused upon. So whenever a software vendor has a SRS document that's accepted by the customer, then the vendor will have a very clear idea about the requirements that are to be actually implemented, under what all criteria it has to be implemented. Now, enabling the costing and the pricing of the software product, right? A well-defined SRS document helps in estimating the amount of effort that is required for the development of the software product. So, if the effort can be estimated, then the time can be estimated. Subsequently, the cost. Now, one of the important aspect that SRS document tries to focus on is it tries to so I'm basically trying to put forward that how effort is estimated and subsequently the time and the cost, right? Okay. Now, one of the important aspect that SRS document tries to exhibit is that SRS document lets us know about the functional size of the software system. Okay, right. So once we know the functional size of the software system or how complex the software system is, then what we can do is we can use various matrices for representing that size. For example, you must learn in the previous class we have various matrices for representing size. That is KSLOC, kilo source lines of code, and then we have feature point matrix and function point matrix, right? Again, so just see these matrices may be used as the basis for determining size, and by using the various standard models for estimate effort and time, what we can do is we can estimate the effort required and the time required. So from the SRS document, what we can do is we can identify the functional size, and from the functional size, we can estimate the effort required and the time required for developing the product. Now, SRS document can act as an input for detailed design. This is what we will learn. A good SRS document enables experienced developer to convert requirements directly into technical design, because if the expression of the requirements are very precisely done and correctly done and concisely done, then those requirements can be straight away modeled into aspects of system design. Now, management of customers' expectation. Definitely, SRS document helps us in managing customers' expectation, because it is a document that is commonly accepted by the developer and the customer. So once the set of requirements are fixed, then it may so happen that it may be used as a basis for determining whether the customer's expectation is met or not, right? So this is also very true, and one of the important provisions of one of the important thing that SRS document facilitates is that it facilitates controlling the change requirement as well, because it may so happen that the customer may continuously come up with a request for change, right, which may be very difficult for the developers to manage. So once the set of requirements are agreed upon, then it may act as a basis for continuing initiating development further not letting the customer propose change or bring about an alteration to the definition. So that is one of the reasons why SRS document is created, right? So in order to minimize the amount of change requirement called upon by the customer. Now, what are the contents of the effective SRS document? Right, as we have learned about, an SRS document has to contain functional requirement, it has to contain non-functional requirement, and it has to contain the constraints or limitations under which the system has been implemented. So let us try to focus on what are the contents of an effective SRS document. So a good SRS document usually contains project scope section, functional requirement, requirement analysis model, external interface requirement, and non-functional requirement, and constraints. So here we have not explicitly highlighted the constraints. So it also contains the constraints or the limitations under which the function the system has been implemented. So scope of the project or the product version. So one of the important item in the requirement specification document is the precise scope or the definition of the project. Right. Okay. So this is very much important. What we need to do is we need to specify the scope of the software system. Accuracy of this is important since the SRS document is also used for estimating and estimation and costing. So this is very much true. So the scope of the system is to be expressed in a very presentable and precise and a concise manner, because it may be used as a basis for estimation and estimation of size, effort, and subsequently costing. This section should include a brief overview of the project and should also indicate goals of the project, including its benefits. Right. So this is what we have been stating. Right. Okay. So it should also include goals of the project. So goals of the project basically means the constraints and limitations with which the software system is capable of performing the action, performing the operation. Sometimes it's better to separate the project scope into separate documents. If the project is for the development of the product vision defines the scope and the target user base of the product. So that's of the product. That's also very much important. So what we need to do is in the scope of the project we need to specify the definition of the project, right? Okay, that is, we need to define the scope of the project, right? Because it may be used as a basis for estimating and costing. It should provide brief overview of the project and should also include goals of implementations or limitations. At times, if SRS it becomes difficult to understand, what we can do is we can separate the scope into separate documents, right? If the project is for the development of a product, then product vision defines the scope and the target user base of the product, right? So this is very much important. So in today's class, what we have learned about is we have learned about mm, the fourth phase of requirement analysis, that is requirement analysis process. We have learned about the importance of stakeholders, right? We have learned about the importance of the various requirement analysis techniques. We have learned about requirement animation reasoning, knowledge-based critiquing, consistency checking, analogies, and case-based reasoning. Then we've learned about importance of requirement specification. We've learned about what are the essence that a requirement specification document should have. We have learned about who are the users of requirement specification document or SRS document, and how it can be potentially used. Okay, right? And then we have learned about the best of the characteristics that a good SRS document should have and should emphasize upon, right? Okay, and should promote. Now, then we've learned about requirement management. Then we've learned about SRS document, that software requirement specification document that's created as a product of specification phase. Right. We've learned about the importance of the SRS document, and we have learned about what is the need of the SRS documents. Okay. Right. And then we have learned about what should be the contents of the SRS document. So in the future classes, we will be learning about a functional and non-functional requirement, and we'll be taking in one standard vision document that tries to express the specification of a software system. Thank you very much. Have a good day.